Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
We don't have. We will.
Yeah.
Because, what?
Well, no, these are referring here to next week's agenda. This is a special meeting. This is a.
Welcome to the Oregon City special meeting, council meeting tonight. It is November the 7th, 2022. The time now is 7:01, and we will open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The 7th, take a roll call of council present, please.
Mr. Davish?
Here.
Mr. Drake?
Here.
Mr. Horniak?
Here.
Mrs. Pavlov? Here. Mr. Reeves?
Here.
Mr. Wallensack?
Here.
Mr. Zale?
Here. Also present at tonight's meeting are Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator Joe Major, Clerk of Council Tina Evans, Law Director Melissa Pora, Public Safety Director Paul Roman, and Acting Finance Director Nick Roman. Council, it's a little different than we normally do. This is a special meeting so that we can address item 168, 2022, which will be a resolution that we will forward to the Plan Commission as soon as possible. So on item 168, 2022, I will defer to the mayor on this particular item.
Thank you, Mr. President. And council, you're aware that where these parcels are in our industrial area, and they're surrounded by industrial properties. Well, they're joined by residential property in our residential area. Is that putting it up there now? And we have some site selectors that have taken interest in us being a possibility site for a project. But when these site selectors are taking it back to the intended party, they would like to know that the zoning actually already exists. So when they're making the selection of where they're going, we being competing with other communities around us, and sometimes even areas that aren't so close to us, but it's a very competitive nature to get these different prospective industrial ventures. So we'd like to have this available and zoned properly for a project that we are trying to encourage to come here. And if not, we still want it available for other possibilities. So we're in a little bit of a time crunch because one of the projects is looking to make a selection here in the very near future. So that's what the call for this special meeting is, to try to get this. We believe if everything goes well, we could get this done in approximately 60 days. And that would make our possible timelines for one of the projects. So Mazer's here, could probably add something, but I think I covered most of the things. We'll try to answer any questions that there are. Mr. Major.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mayor. There are a few reasons this referral is being requested right now at this time. I'll go through the list, and Alec Thompson is here also. And then if Council President, if it's okay, I'd like to call him up in a few minutes to elaborate a little bit on the RFI process for everyone.
That's fine, Mr. Mayor.
So the OEDF is currently working on submitting RFIs that come, these are leads that come from Jobs Ohio that fit our community. So that's going on, and in his quarterly meeting, we kind of talked about, not in any detail whatsoever, but at least knowing that you have, I believe, 14 leads that you're working on right now, not necessarily particular to this site, but around the area. Number two, this has been the plan all along, from what my understanding is, to have this area developed as an industrial use. I don't think there's been any mystery to that plan whatsoever. Also, I wanted to point out, so number 3, the investment has already been made. Road is already built through there and the utilities to serve this area for an industrial use. Number 4, it conforms with the citywide master plan, although the citywide master plan is a little bit dated. It's about 20 years old, and just a little prelude here. I am gonna have an item in the budget coming up. Approved or not, it can be added in, taken out, but I'm gonna have an item for consideration in the budget for an update to the master plan. Master plan should be updated probably once every 5 to 10 years, is an industry standard, but ours is about 20 years old now. Lastly, what I'll say is time is of the essence, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. The RFIs are coming in now, and any of us that have lived through the recession in the economic development industry remember that it was dry. There were no leads, there was no activity, and it was a struggle. And I think any investments that we get now just set ourselves up for the future. And as the mayor alluded to also is that the site selectors coming in are always asking, one of the questions they always ask is, what is the property zoned as? And does it fit the need or fit the use that we desire? So at this point, I'd like Alec to come up and talk about the RFI process and why site selectors are, why they ask the questions that they do, why they are the way they are. So,
Absolutely.
thank you, Alec.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Alex?
My name is Alec Thompson. I'm with the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. And really our purpose as LEDOs, local economic development organizations, specifically my role as the director there, is to mitigate risk for these site consultants that are coming to our town to show that we are ready and capable for their projects. So again, this zoning change, it's a box that we check as a community to move us up in the list, which is very important. Again, less risk for these companies, for these site consultants, proves that we are ready to move confidentially, with confidence, and swiftly at the same time. So zoning change is a huge part of this, and quite frankly, for this particular site we're talking about, it's the last leg to make us very, very competitive in the state of Ohio. Not within just our region, but the entire state, and quite frankly, Southeast Michigan and even some Indiana sites. This really puts us ahead of the ballgame. Do you want me to elaborate on the RFI process?
A little, if you
Okay.
could, yeah.
So RFIs come in through Jobs Ohio. They list project requirements. Some are for, I say project requirements. Is your site ready? Is your building ready? Clearly, we don't have a building here. Maybe we'll get to that at some point. So really, it's talking about this site. And again, utilities, zoning, permit process. They can be very in-depth. The longest one I think I've had is 14 to 15 pages. Some of them are a page long. Regardless, they take time. It takes a lot of teamwork, if you will, with the utility partners to make sure you get answers that are thorough and not only just project a yes or no answer, but really go in depth to show what we're capable of. Again, this site's a very competitive site for many major projects. So again, this, if your RFI meets the needs of the company and they like what they see, typically a site visit follows. So we've done a few of those here already. And after site visits, then, we get shortlisted, and hopefully that project continues to stay in touch with you. I will say these projects take a long time. So a site visit happens today, it could still be 2 to 3 years down the line. You actually see a shovel in the ground. So again, it's very important that we have our due diligence done up front to show that we are ready, because a lot of this time and waiting period is site consultants identifying sites for companies. That it's an elimination process. It's really not a selection process, and you want to be the last person to be eliminated, you win the game. So that's what the RFI process is all about. Again, it's a very painstaking, and it takes a long time to get through to answer all the questions appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Council, any questions or comments? Hearing that,
Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Mr. Horniak.
So in the site itself and as part of the 2020 master plan, this is kind of that area identified in our industrial area. You mentioned that the road that was put in as part of, I believe, Oregon Clean Energy Development, we had kind of, I'll say, designed and routed that in a way that would make this land as desirable as possible. As far as utility access, things of that nature, power, water, gas, I mean, all things available at this site, how attractive do all the things around it make this site to a potential
Very,
investor?
very attractive. In fact, we look to be the leading contender for this, for one of the site, or for one of the projects, at least out there. I think I'm speaking accurately, am I not? And one of the things, when you brought up Oregon Clean Energy was really important to us because that put the city of Oregon really on the map. We were able to deliver the answers to the questions that at the time Bill Martin and Bill Seidowitz were new to us. But what these people want is they need the space, but they need all the utilities. And that's very important, whether, especially to the gas or to the natural gas power plant. They had to have access to the power grid. They had to have a route that they could get gas lines to it. They had to have the water. They had to have everything. And we were able to not only get them the answers, we were able to get them accurate answers and very quickly. And that's crucial in this market. So the people that look like they know what they're talking about are able to land the jobs. As others, they shoot right past you.
Mhm.
So that's what really puts us as contenders, is we have our game in line. And we've been successful, and we want to have our sites as ready, prepared as possible. Shovel ready. They can come there and start their project. And if we don't do it, there will be plenty of other communities that'll be trying to do it.
Thank you. Follow up, if I could, just two other pieces to it. So speaking to the map that's before us and up on the screen as we're looking at that, one of them is shaded as a commercial industrial, and the other, I'm gonna say it looks like two parcels are looking at that as the advanced manufacturing. That's the recommendation that's being put to the planning commission?
That is
That's
correct.
Okay.
Would you like me to elaborate a little? bit?
Please.
So in talking with Jim Gilmore and looking at some of the leads that are coming in, the parcel, if you could scroll down, I know it's not oriented north-south, but that smaller parcel that's controlled by the OEDF right now, that would be commercial industrial, but that conforms with the remaining parcels. And the remaining parcels are commercial industrial. To make that advanced manufacturing would be spot zoning. Industry practice is you don't spot zone like that. So that was why, and Jim and I both really agree a lot on this. It really should conform with the uses around it. As for the other parcels what would be to the east, which is on the top part of the page. So the advanced manufacturing component helps buffer the residential piece, because it's kind of according to the chapter in the code on what advanced manufacturing is. It's meant to be more aesthetically pleasing, have a little softer feel to it, so that it's not doesn't have the look of a dirty industrial type of property, even though manufacturing these days, really, any new construction really isn't, your typical smokestack, dirty industrial looking properties anymore. But this puts some guardrails in place so that the prototypical perception of what industry isn't built, but more modern. The other part is leaving this part commercial industrial, I think, is important, because keeping it in commercial industrial in this area allows for the most flexibility in what the uses can be. So if there's a potential site selector that's looking at this parcel, the advanced manufacturing might not be the right fit for it. So we're just allowing ourselves the most flexibility to land the, the best, get the highest and best use out of the properties we can.
Thank you. In the advanced manufacturing, I mean, just going back, as it kind of precedes your time that was here, was something that we as a city did, oh God, a little less than a year ago, right around a year ago, that we put that forward basically to do that. And that was for that aesthetic concept of that, so that we could design and have a little greater say in what that is and where that comes to be. So last question I have on this, and then I'll pass on to whomever else may have something. So rezoning this, so we all know projects have interest, they go looking, and they don't always happen, right? That's part of what we do in this world. To Alex's point, is probably gets a lot of inquiries, a lot of shovels go in the ground, right? A lot of looking in a lot of places. If this is changed over, and I know most of that land is farmed today, that doesn't discontinue any ability for that as far as, tax things that come in for those landowners that use it as agricultural today. Those benefits still remain until that parcel is developed, sold for what is not owned by the city today.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
the
Thank
tax
you, Mr. Mayor.
structure goes towards the land use. So regardless to how it's zoned, it would be taxed on the basis of how the land is being used. So regardless of the zoning, if it's being used as agricultural, it'll be taxed as that. One of the things I was going to tell you, whether we want to choose to believe this or not, we are an industrial-based city. Retail is very difficult for us with the flow of traffic that we have trying to land retail stores with our town center. It's something, it's very difficult for us. It was said we couldn't do that with the numbers that we have here. So we had to have innovative approaches so that we could make our town center work, which innovative financing sources that make it appealing to prospective retail when we are basically an industrial city. So we do have to take advantage of our industrial areas, because that's our lifeline of our financial sources in the city. And that's what makes us have to work so hard, where people try to compare, well, why don't you have your retail stores developed? Harrisburg out Route 20 or 25, that's 20 is landing things. Well, they're known as a retail-based community, and they have the numbers that we don't have of traffic flow and the influx of potential customers. So we have to do things to stimulate it, making it almost impossible, but with our innovative natures that we were able to achieve, we may be able to pull off something unforeseen. And it took risk on each of our parts to take those risks to put that in. There will be people that wouldn't want to take those risks, but we believe it's, whether going very, very slowly but cautiously, we take every step to make sure anything that goes in there is sustainable. Because we want to have a fall in timbers where things start to dry up. We got to make ours work. We're patient, and we work countless hours. Mr. Roman will tell you, Mr. Major's figuring it out. Mr. Beasley and I, our days never stop just working at retail developments. People don't understand that. Some in this room might not understand that. We get critiqued all the time, but we will prevail with that. And I appreciate your patience to everything that you've done to support those ventures so far.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good.
One question I have, if the Plan Commission approves this and it comes before council, and I believe it would be December the 19th, which we would have a public hearing regarding the zoning change, would we have any idea of who actually is looking at this site, is interested in it? Because I have a feeling that's
tough.
that's gonna be that's gonna be a question that's going to be asked.
They're very tight-lipped when they come
I
in.
understand that.
And so right now, we don't. We can speculate and guess. But as it gets closer and but once they start saying they're coming here or they're going to attempt to come here, then we'll know. And then we'll be able to announce that.
Okay,
Sort of like-
you know, just to continue, I mean, to go with that question that I just asked. When we talked about this advanced manufacturing zoning that we wanted to do, and we set that up, I think one of the things we kind of told a lot of the public about, and I do agree with it, that we should, will we be able to make a business or industry that wants to come here in that area palatable, look nice, screened better than normal? You know what I mean? I mean, are we gonna be able to do that?
Well, we can, if we pass this to advanced manufacturing, they will have the ability to do anything that advanced manufacturing permits. That's why we created an advanced
Right.
manufacturing that puts those limitations on what was formerly M1 and M2, which M2 had pretty much no limitations. So yes, you read what's in this zoning code and for advanced manufacturing, and they would be permitted to do anything that it allows. That's, like I said, that's why we created it. Site select, that's why they hire site selectors to find the site. They have enough information to have their demands of what they need. They don't give them a lot else. But neither does any other community.
Right.
We get somewhat educated by when they ask certain questions of how much water they need, how much sewer, how much power. We can get an idea, sort of what they want from what the usages are and the quantities of those usages. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, any other questions or comments? Mr. Wallenczak.
Thank you, President Zale. I just briefly spoke with Mr. Roman as the mayor was speaking, answering that question, that remember that the open ditch along Wynn Road is whatever something develops there, most likely will get relocated back away from Wynn, and it will be buffered with a mound similar to Wynn Road past Cedar Point. So there would be part of your buffering right there on anything that would be developed in that.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. We did discuss that. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. Council, any other questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves?
thank you. Doesn't sound like it's working now, but at any rate, the three parcels that we're talking about, the blue and the two in the beigeish or orangish color, who are the property owners of that property? And are they on board? If it's not us as the city,
The blue one is us.
the blue one is ours?
One of the blue ones.
The March Steel, what was the March Steel property? Was
Yes.
ours, which is right
The
along
up-
Wynn. But the one just to the west of that is not.
Which one is,
The biggest,
The
the
bigger
dark
one
blue.
right along Wynn Road is the city's property.
okay, the blue one is the city.
The one that's right at the top of the page.
Okay,
Now it's not at the top.
like the two that are underneath that are. that we're
Correct.
asking for?
Are ones we will assume options on.
Correct.
Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna ask this correctly, are the people that own, the entities or whatever that own those two properties, are they on board with this?
Council President, if I may.
Yes, Mr.
I'm
Major.
not sure how to
No,
answer the question.
no, that's-
but I'm just
that's-
trying to,
Oh, that's
it's a little,
great.
I mean, it's very confusing.
It is, yeah, understood.
Thank you,
Um,
Mr. Reeves. Mr. Major.
The two parcels, the two narrow ones. We have been in contact, I believe one of them, the one to the, I guess that would be the west, the orange colored one is under option. The other one is not at this time, but both property owners are aware of these zoning changes, that we're bringing them forward, that it is in our master plan. And to this point, we've had no objection from them.
That was probably the roundabout way that I was trying to ask.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Thank you, Mr. Major. Council, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will assign item 168, 2022 as resolution 168, 2022, and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record.
Referring to the Plan Commission, the change in zoning of certain properties located on Wynn Road and Corduroy Road, setting a public hearing and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak.
I move for passage of Resolution 168 of 2022 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reeves. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Ms. Evans, you take a roll call vote of council, please.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
yes,
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Sale?
Yes, thank you, council. Resolution 168, 2022 passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays and will be forwarded to the Plan Commission, I believe next Tuesday. This ends our special meeting agenda, and I would request a call for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Council, is there any objections? Hearing none, this special meeting is adjourned. So now we will begin the Oregon City Council Committee of the Whole meeting, and it is 7:28. And the first item up for consideration is item 169, 2022, which is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Public Service Director Paul Roman. Mr. Roman, I'll defer to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this ordinance is needed to pay Rainier covering systems to cover the city's salt pile that currently sits the Grottle dock facility there on Front Street. Normally, the covering cost has been under our limit for whereas you need an ordinance that's 25,000. And I know when we first started this 20 years ago, this cost was like $8,000, and that definitely has increased. But over the last couple of years, it has really skyrocketed. I know in 2020 we paid 18,000 to cover 9,000 tons. In 21 we paid 22,000 to cover 10,000, and now our tonnage is around 12,000. But this bill is $35,355. I'm talking to the owner. You know, the tarping has almost doubled in cost, and labor has gone up by 30%. So, and it's rare. It's actually fine to hire these companies to do this work, and it is time sensitive for the salt. You know, when it's left uncovered. So, you know, I know we did check with another vendor. We did not get any response. I told Keith, I said we need to do a better job of just trying to get more quotes and really seeking out other vendors to perform this work. It does make me think about salt storage in general and whether we should ever build our own facility. I know that you know, the cost of something like that is pushing it 800, 900,000. And I know a lot of times the newer structures now, you build a concrete wall and then you have these nylon material for the roofing. ODOT has a lot of them, but I think even with what you're paying, we still pay Grottle $1 a ton for just the salt to sit there year round. So you pay a rent, and you know, we have clearly having salt delivered by ship is the way to go. We save a lot of money doing that, and we will continue to do that. But do you store it down there, or do you store it in a building on our site? I think hauling the salt, we still haul the salt back here no matter what. So you would still have that cost. You know, in the upcoming budget, we do have a line item to re-roof our salt dome out back that holds about 1,000 tons. But I think before we pull the trigger on that, I I'd want to know what our options are to look at possibly another, not to say next year, but, you know, in a couple years, do we look at building a facility? It might be the better money spent. So, so I just want to let you know that we're, want to make sure we try to lower this price in the future. And if we can't, we look at other options. That's all. So
Thank
happy
you,
to
Mr.
answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, any questions or comments? Hearing none, I will ask, yes. Yes.
Mr.
President,
Mr. Davish.
I'd like to move item 169 of 2022 to next week's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Council, are there any objections? Item 169, 2022 will be moved to next week's agenda. Next item up is item 170, 2022, which is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Acting Finance Director Nick Roman. And I will defer to Mr. Roman.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is to renew our health insurance agreement with the Jefferson Health Plan. This is for a self-funded program that is for medical and prescription drug coverage for 2023. This does come with a 7.58% increase over this year. We've been with them for 2 years now. I would estimate that this year we'll save about $300,000 compared to Medical Mutual, who we have used in the past. If you have any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, any questions or comments? Hearing none, seek a motion to move item 170, 2022 to next week's agenda.
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallensack?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I make a motion to move item number 170 of 2022 to next week's regular meeting agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 170, 2022 will be moved to next week's meeting agenda. Next up is item 171, 2022, which is also being presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Acting Finance Director Nick Roman. And Mr. Roman, I will defer to you again.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is for our dental insurance with Delta Dental. It is another renewal. I believe we've been with Delta Dental since about 2004, and they've had great service for us. This year, they're actually offering us a 6% decrease over 2022. Again, I'm willing to answer any questions.
I saw that. I couldn't believe that. I thought it was a misprint.
I couldn't either.
I think that's going to beg a few questions.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in council. So I don't think I ever have. Thank you, Mr. Roman.
Mr.
Council, any
President.
questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak?
I do have the obvious question. Do we have any idea on what drove the decrease? Because that is quite unusual in these times.
Yeah, I think it is partially due to how much our dental insurance is used. And we had them look into raising the max amount that we can use per year from 1,000 to 1,500. But we were looking at previous years, how many people hit that max amount, and it's only about 10%. So I think that is part of why they decreased it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Mayor?
And they said that there's usually a catch-up period when you start a service like a dental plan where people get all their dental bigger problems taken care of. And then once you're in it for so long, you start having less exposure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to move item 171, 2022 to next week's meeting agenda.
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion to move item number 171 of 2022 to next week's regular meeting agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Any objections, council? Hearing none, item 171, 2022 will be moved to next week's meeting agenda. And that completes our agenda items for the committee of the whole meeting tonight, and we'll move to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing I'd just like to elaborate on, not only with the dental plan, but we've taken an active role in a wellness plan here at the city where people can get early signs of things taken care of and reduce exposure to our health insurance plan too. And that's gone quite well. And I think we're seeing the benefit of having that here also. So people put a lot of work into a lot of the different things we have going on here, and we're starting to see some payback for it. Other than that, I would conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Major?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that November 13th is the fire station dedication ceremony at 1 p.m. and December 3rd is the tree lighting ceremony as well. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Ms. Pepora?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Pepora. Mr. Roman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. A couple things. All of you, including myself, I know we've all received complaints about the Pickle Road Railroad crossing. I know when you travel that section, everyone goes down about 3 miles per hour to travel over the rail. And we've been working with CSX, and I made all of you aware about a month ago or so, the idea that through the Ohio Rail Development Commission, there is a way that if you close a crossing, they'll fund an upgrade of a crossing at full cost. So we've been working with CSX in the Ohio Rail Division, Development Division, and there's several stages of doing this. There is a need of a comment period, a 30-day comment period. So we have worked out letters with the Rail Development Commission, and you send them to the immediate property owners in that area. So we're talking around Oakdale and Woodville area. But we will also put out letters to stakeholders, the police department, fire department, school system, EMS, anyone that uses Oakdale, obviously. But if we choose, after receiving those comments, if we choose to move forward, then we would have legislation before council, which then we would then, if it's passed, then it would give our intent to close Oakdale. Now, what's been promised is if that happens, Pickle Road would be upgraded with the full depth rubber surface meant for truck traffic. It'd be a true upgrade. I travel Pickle quite a bit in that area, and even when they would do their upgrades, they would last 2 years tops. And then you're always begging them to do more for the next years after that. So, part of the legislation, I made it really clear to them. I said, we're not going to close Oakdale till we know Pickle's done, number one, and that I said I want that in the legislation, and they said they're okay with that. So, but go ahead. I don't know.
Mr. President?
Mr. Wallenjack?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Roman, when you say Oakdale, I assume that you're talking Oakdale right near Woodville by
That
the
is-
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wallenstein. That is exactly where it's at. And just so you know, with the public notice, there would be a map that shows Oakdale, that little segment that's there. That would be a right in, right out only, we probably would still maintain that as a public road, but Oakdale would be closed otherwise. I think Sunshine is built to accommodate the traffic. There is a traffic light. It would be safer, closing a railroad crossing is safer. It'd be a no, even though the train's gonna blow their horns at Pickle, they wouldn't blow them at Oakdale anymore, so it'd be a little bit quieter, but I think even at Pickle, I did ask the question, could we make it a no horn zone as well? We would have to do more to accommodate that. You put in barriers in the middle of the road that you can't make it so you can't go around a gate. And if you invest in that, then that could be an area where you have no horns, and that would be a major improvement if you didn't have it for Oakdale and as well as for Pickle. But that work would be 100% our cost if we chose to do that. So. I think the rubber surface is definitely needed, especially with Toledo Refinery there. As much as we try to get the trucks to use, Woodville to Wheeling, you try to keep them off that section of Pickle. There is still some inner refinery traffic that goes to and from the tank farm to the refinery that still needs that as a truck crossing. So this is, and this is really a grant through the Ohio Rail Development Commission. But they do eliminate a crossing, so there is safety. It is a safety funding for that. I have mixed views. I've used Oakdale quite a bit to Woodville. It is a nice, quick jog to make a right, but when I see the trains, I just take Sunshine and I don't think much of it, so, but it would be safer. So anyways, I just want to let you know that that's in the process, and we'll be sending out letters, and we'll probably put a message board out at the rail crossing on Oakdale, letting the public know about it as well. And then I just wanted to mention that Navarre and Coy is getting close to getting done. We are about a week away. We think sometime early next week it'll be fully open. We'll still have temporary signals. The true permanent signals really won't come till March of '23, and just like the lit ballards, the same thing. They'll come in the early winter months, but the road will be fully open. So next week. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing from my standing committee, just a reminder, we voting tomorrow, starting at 6:30, and we have the 3 issues that we have on the proposals, 18, 19, and 20. The reason they're put on is to let the voters decide if they want changes to the charter. So, I've had several people that have emailed me about one of them, and I noticed that they've emailed quite a few of us, and we've all gotten back to them with basically the same response. It's to let the voters decide if they want to make changes. If not, it's good. If they do, it's good as well. So just remember to get out and vote tomorrow, and good luck to everybody that is running tomorrow and on the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Drake? Thank you, Mr. Drake. Mr. Wallentak?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple things here. At our last meeting, we changed how we're going to communicate, or ask the public to communicate with council.
Yes, sir.
What I was wondering, or like to see us look to do, is provide information to the public on who they should contact and what numbers or email addresses that they can contact them. Either putting a pull-down tab on our website that lists a multitude of questions that a resident may have, where they can click on that question and say, oh, we talked to the street department for a pothole, and this is the email address or the phone number where I could talk to somebody. Instead of just telling them, well, you can email us or you can call us, let's give them that information so that they can better communicate and better find their solution. And then potentially putting something in with our water bills that gives the same type of information, that maybe they put it up on the refrigerator, that provides them with the phone numbers and contacts, who they can go seek out those answers for help.
Thank you, Mr. Wallentak. I think that, excuse me, I think that's a really good idea. I know when I look at our website, like if you go to council members, our emails are readily right there. And really pretty much, here's the issue I think you're bringing up that I would have, that we could clean up better, is contacting a certain administrative office. Finding us, I think, is really easy on there, but finding the administrative office might be a little more confusing. But I think we'll discuss this more. I like that.
Yeah, we can put 25 different questions. They can go just read the question that they have, click on it, and tells them who to contact to get their answer.
Thank you, Mr. Wallentak.
Yeah. And then I also just wanted to mention that the Oregon Health and Wellness, they are accepting applications now for the food basket program. You can get an application outside the building and zoning doors. So if anybody in the public needs assistance this holiday season, please fill out that application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallentak. Mr. Davish.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Poloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mazur gave my report, so it was about the opening of the fire department. It's going to be exciting. It's a beautiful place, so I hope everyone goes. Other than that, no report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Mr. Horniak.
Nothing from my standing committee, but I think piggybacking on Mr. Wallenczak's idea, which I think is a great idea in a timely nature, and, perhaps even, I know every year as a fire department, typically they go out and deliver calendars. Maybe a listing on the calendars, because I know that calendar is always up at our house. So having some kind of ready reference of here's the different departments, contacts, information, things of that nature. I think the other part in communicating in the public participation part of our meetings, I think it's important also for us to communicate exactly what that process is and how somebody goes about entering into that process. I've had a few inquiries to that over the last week, and I don't know that we actually have stated that or made that clear, and I think we want to make sure that we do that. I think we want to encourage more than discourage that participation and that sharing of information and questions and comment period. But I think we just need to make sure we list what does that look like so that people understand what that process is, so that we, have that capability moving forward. So, but I love the idea of helping people know who to contact, because I think a lot of times we get approached with things as even as council persons, and the question is, I have this or I have that, and the question is always, well, just call the city. Okay, well, there's a lot of folks that work at the city. So I think trying to share that down, I love the idea of that, Mr. Wallenczak. That's a great idea. And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Mr. President, can I?
Thank you, Mr. Horniak.
Mr. President, can I say one more thing in regards
Yes,
to
Mr.
that?
Wallenczak.
I know in the past when Mr. Beasley was here, I know I had discussions with them, and I know other members of council had discussions with Mr. Beasley in this regard of developing an app for our phones, so that if you have a phone, you press a button and you get to information with the city instead of having to go in and plug in an email address. Everybody works on apps now. There's got to be a way that we can develop an app, just like other communities have developed an app, so that we can have ready access to our citizens, and citizens can have ready-made access to us. So I just ask that the administration tries to move forward in developing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. And I have nothing for my standing committee. Just a reminder, though, that also we have the dog park dedication at the YMCA grounds on Thursday, the 10th at 3 p.m. And I believe at that time we'll actually unveil a sign that is going to be there. So just a reminder of that. And with that, I will seek a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Second by Mr. Davish. Council, any objections? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay. All right, that's okay. I was gonna say
It's really tiny.
Well, it's jumpy, so like, there seems to be a little time lapse, so like, as you see people.
Uh-huh.
moving,
Yep.
I was looking for it.
And you know what? When you look at it on YouTube, it doesn't do that. Uh-huh. It's just on here. I know. I don't know. It is really, really weird though.
Well, I think, I don't know.